The morning of my son's wedding. The house buzzed with voices, laughter, and the clatter of 100 hurried hands. I sat on the edge of my bed, smoothing the folds of my old green sari. It was the nicest, ion threadbare in places, patched at the hem, but still holding a quiet grace. I ran my palm over its fabric, remembering the many years I had kept it safe for this day. Not for festivals, not for visits, not even for temple, only for my son's wedding. On the small wooden stool beside me lay a tin box. Inside it, folded in paper, were the last bangles I had kept from my youth, gold dulled by time but still glowing when they caught the light. I had saved them for my daughter-in-law, my welcome gift, my blessing to the girl who would become part of our family. I whispered to myself, he will look for me today, he will want his mother by his side. Downstairs, I heard the rush of footsteps, the clinking of plates, the laughter of cousins. The whole house moved like a festival. And yet no one called my name. I stood carefully, sari draped over my shoulder, bangles in hand. My knees ached, but my heart was full. For years, I had dreamed of walking into that wedding hall, of seeing my son dressed as a groom, of blessing him with trembling hands. This was supposed to be my day too. When I stepped into the corridor, my daughter-in-law's mother brushed past me, her perfume heavy, her silk sari gleaming. She glanced at me, then quickly away, as if the sight of my faded sari was a shadow on the glittering morning. My son's voice carried from the next room. He was laughing with his friends, his tone light and carefree. I paused at the doorway, listening, waiting for him to ask, "Where is Ma? Has anyone seen her?" The question never came. Instead, one of the wedding planners looked at me, then whispered to another, "We should keep her away from the guests. She doesn't fit." The words pricked my ears like thorns. Keep me away from my own son's wedding. I held the bangles tighter, my hands trembling. No, I whispered to myself, they are only flustered. The day is busy. My son will see me soon. But deep in my heart, a shadow stretched across the joy. I thought the morning's silence was just the rush of a wedding day, but I was wrong. A week passed before the photographs arrived. Relatives began sharing them in WhatsApp groups, their phones glowing with images of silk saris, golden lights, and smiling faces. I sat on my bed, my old phone buzzing. Each chime another reminder that I had lived through the same day as them, but not in the same way. When I finally opened the pictures, my heart stopped. There was the stage, glowing like a dream. My son, radiant in his wedding attire, his bride dazzling at his side. Behind them, rows of smiling relatives, his uncles, his aunts, cousins, friends, neighbors, even distant acquaintances. But not me. I scrolled again and again, my finger trembling. Photo after photo, frame after frame, no trace of me. Even in the wide group shots I was missing. Where I should have been, another woman stood. My daughter-in-law's mother, her silk sari shimmering under the lights, her smile wide as she posed where I should have stood. It was as if I had been cut out of my son's wedding entirely. I held the phone tightly, my chest burning. I whispered, I was there. I was there. Even if the pictures erase me, I was there. Tears blurred the screen, but I kept scrolling, desperate for one glimpse of myself. At last, I found a single photo. In the corner, half hidden by a curtain, my face barely visible in shadow, my eyes downcast, my hands clutching the bangles still wrapped in cloth. That was the only proof that I had existed that day. If you believe every mother deserves dignity, press like and comment, respect below. Let no mother's love be erased from her children's lives. I turned off the phone and sat in silence. For a long time, I could hear only the faint tick of the clock and the distant sounds of neighbors' lives moving on. In that silence, I realized something. Photographs could erase me, whispers could hide me. Even my son's eyes could look past me, but my sacrifices remained. The meals I had skipped, the nights I had stayed awake sewing, the years I had carried both their weight and my own. Those truths could not be erased, not by curtains, not by cameras, not by silence. I would not be remembered in the photographs, perhaps, but the land of my home remembered me. The walls where I measured his height remembered me. The bed where he once curled against me during storms remembered me, and most of all, I remembered myself. I whispered into the night, as if speaking to every child and every mother who might hear across time. Do not hide the hands that built you. Do not silence the voice that prayed for you. Do not erase the woman who stood hungry so you could eat. Because one day, when you look for her in your photographs, you may find only shadows and regret. I sat a little taller then. My sari still old, my house still small, but my dignity untouched. They could hide me behind curtains, They could leave me out of pictures. They could even forget me in their joy. But I would not forget myself. The music faded as the wedding car disappeared down the road, its trail of petals scattering in the dust. Guests clapped, voices softened, and the hall began to empty. Chairs scraped, decorations sagged, the laughter that had filled the air just minutes before thinned into silence. I stood alone near the doorway, watching the space where the car had vanished. My sari hung heavy on my shoulders, its fabric damp with sweat and shame. My hands felt empty without the bangles I had longed to give, without even the warmth of my son's head bowing for my blessing. A cousin brushed past me, carrying boxes of leftover sweets. "Mudgy, go home," he said absent-mindedly. "The wedding is over." Over, 2 syllables, sharp and final. Over, though it had never begun for me. The hall grew darker as lights were switched off one by one. Families gathered their children, adjusted their jewelry, and left in groups, their chatter still bright with joy. No one asked if I needed help. No one asked if I had eaten. No one even looked at me. I walked slowly out of the hall, the gravel crunching under my worn sandals. The night air was cooler than the crowded hall, but it did not soothe me. It only made me aware of how alone I was. I had imagined walking home with my son beside me, guests trailing behind, neighbors nodding with respect, pride swelling in my chest. Instead, I walked alone under a sky that seemed too wide for one woman's sorrow. On the roadside, I paused, my knees weak, and leaned against a lamppost. The faint hum of the bulb above me reminded me of nights when I had studied bills and accounts late, squinting in dim light, so my son could attend school with fees paid on time. I whispered, I gave everything for him, and today, I was given nothing. If this moment broke your heart, please share this story. Too many mothers walk home from their children's weddings in silence. When I reached my house, the silence pressed against me. No laughter, no garlands, no music, only shadows on the walls where memories used to live. I sat on my bed, my legs trembling, my sari pooling around me like wilted leaves. Beside me lay the empty tin box where the bangles once rested. I opened it anyway, staring at the hollow space. My mother's gift, my blessing, my pride all swallowed by a table of glittering boxers. Forgotten like me. I wept then, not loudly but with quiet sobs that shook my chest. Not for the bangles, not even for the humiliation, but for the truth that my son had allowed it. That he had looked away when I needed just one glance, one nod, one acknowledgement that I was his mother. I thought walking home alone would be the end of my pain, but one more wound still waited for me. The hall was alive with music again, drums echoing, voices rising in cheer. Guests danced in circles, the bride's friends clapping in rhythm while photographers darted like bees around flowers. I stayed on my stool by the kitchen door, my empty plate balanced on my lap, my fingers still aching from letting go of the bangles. My gift had vanished into the glitter, swallowed like I had been swallowed by the shadows of this day. But in my heart, one small flame still burned. I thought, at least I can stand near him when he leaves the hall. At least I can place my hand on his head as he steps out, even for a moment. Even if no one else sees, he will feel me. When the time came, the guests gathered near the exit for the bid-eye ceremony. The bride's family cried softly, her mother wiping tears with silk kerchiefs. My son stood proudly at the center, his hand clasped around his bride's. Cameras flashed. People pressed close, petals rained down. I rose from my stool, moving slowly through the crowd. My knees wobbled, but my heart beat steady. I whispered, just one blessing. That is all I ask. But as I drew closer, a young man from the bride's side put out his hand to stop me. Not now, Maji. The photos are being taken. Please stand aside. I tried to step around him, but he blocked me again, his voice sharper this time. Later, please. Later. The cruelest word in a mother's life. Later, which never comes. I stood frozen as the cameras clicked. My son threw petals with his friends, laughing. His bride bowed her head, smiling shyly. My eyes burned, not from joy but from the salt of tears that refused to fall. From the edge of the crowd, I whispered his name. Once, twice, but my voice was lost in the roar of drums and cheers. He did not hear me, or perhaps he did not listen. If you believe no mother should be left unseen on her own child's wedding day, please like this video and comment respect. Let the world know the value of mothers. As the car arrived for the couple, everyone rushed forward to wave and bless. I tried to follow, my steps slow but determined. For just a second, I caught his eyes. For that one heartbeat, I prayed he would stop, that he would reach for me, call me closer, bend for my blessing. But he looked away. The driver opened the door. Petals scattered, and my son and his bride stepped inside. The crowd cheered, the cameras flashed, and I stood invisible in the back, my hands empty, my sorry heavy with humiliation. The car drove off, carrying away my son, my hope, and the last pieces of the day I had dreamed of for so long. I thought being hidden behind a curtain was the deepest wound. But watching my son leave without my blessing tore me apart in a way no shadow ever could. The family photographs ended, the music shifted, and servants carried trays of food into the hall. The air filled with the fragrance of biryani sweets and spices that clung to the silk-clad guests as they laughed and clapped. I stepped out slowly from behind the curtain, my sari wrinkled from leaning against the wall, my eyes burning from silent tears. I thought perhaps now, during the feast, I would be welcomed. After all, who eats without the mother's blessing? But the moment I walked toward the tables, a cousin waved me away gently, his voice low but firm. "Maji, please, sit over there. The front tables are full." He pointed to a corner where a small stool had been placed near the kitchen door. Not even a proper chair, just a stool, wobbly and splintered. I sat down, my bangles clutched in my hand, and watched as guests feasted. Plates piled with rice, sweets, and steaming curries. Laughter rose like music, and every spoonful seemed to sparkle under the golden lights. When a server finally brought me food, it was on a steel plate, not the decorated china everyone else received. My portion was small, the rice already cold. I bowed my head and ate quietly, each bite tasting not of spices but of shame. From where I sat, I could see my son at the head table, smiling as his new bride fed him a sweet with her delicate hands. The crowd cheered, flashing cameras captured the moment, and I sat alone, chewing stale rice. For a moment, I closed my eyes and remembered feeding him with my own hands when he was a boy. I remembered blowing on hot food to cool it, breaking rotis into small pieces so he could eat easily. Back then, he had laughed with his mouth wide open, never embarrassed by his mother's touch. Now, his mother was hidden in a corner, erased from the celebration of his new life. If this moment broke your heart, please share this story. Too many mothers are pushed aside while the world celebrates around them. After the meal, people began to talk about gifts. Jewelry boxes, silk saris, envelopes filled with money. The pile on the gift table grew higher and higher. I looked down at the small cloth bundle in my lap, the bangles I had saved all these years. My fingers traced the gold, dulled but still warm with memory. I rose, my knees trembling, and walked toward the stage. Perhaps now, at least, I could give my gift. Perhaps now my son would remember I existed. But before I reached him, a young woman from the bride's side stepped in front of me. Her voice was soft, but her eyes carried no softness. "Maji, the gifts are being handled by us. Please, leave yours on the table." "My bangles are not just a gift," I whispered. "They are my blessing. I must place them on her wrist myself." The woman hesitated, then shook her head. "It will look odd," that word again. Odd. She guided me to the table, pried the bundle gently from my hand, and set it down among the glittering boxes. My mother's bangles, buried like a pebble in a mountain of jewels. I stood there for a moment, my hands empty, my chest hollow. I thought sitting behind a curtain was the final humiliation, but losing the chance to give my blessing cut deeper than any shadow ever could. The rituals ended, the music swelled, and guests pressed forward for photographs. The hall glittered with gold, silk, and flashing lights. I clutched the bangles in my hand, waiting for anyone to call me forward. But instead, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was my daughter-in-law's aunt, her smile painted on like fresh powder. "Maji," she said sweetly, "come with me, just for a little while." I rose slowly, my knees stiff, hope stirring that perhaps this was the moment. Perhaps they wanted me near the stage after all. But she led me not toward the stage, not toward the lights, but toward a corner of the hall where a long curtain had been drawn to hide spare chairs and boxes of decoration. She pulled the curtain back slightly, motioning me inside. "Just wait here for now. Guests are still coming. It will be easier." The word again, easier. I stepped behind the curtain. It smelled of dust and stale cloth. From the narrow gap, I could see the hall glowing with celebration, the laughter, the garlands, the endless photographs. And I, the mother of the groom, stood hidden in the shadows like an uninvited guest. I pressed my forehead against the fabric. My sari, faded and patched, felt heavier than silk. My bangles clinked softly in my trembling hands. I thought of all the years I had imagined this date, the day I would place those bangles on my daughter-in-law's wrist, bless her, and tell her she was now my daughter too. But here I was, not on the stage, not in the photographs, not even in the hall, just a shadow behind a curtain. Guests passed close by, their voices floating through the gap. She must be shy. Why isn't the groom's mother in the photos? Maybe she's unwell. No one guessed the truth that I was hidden, not absent. I whispered to myself, if only your father were here, he would not let them do this. But he was gone, and so was the little power I once held. If this moment broke your heart, please like this video. Let the world see how often mothers are erased from their children's happiest days. From behind the curtain, I saw my son pose for pictures, laughing freely, radiant in his groom's attire. I waited for his eyes to search, to notice my absence, to ask, where is Ma? But his eyes never reached me. He posed, he smiled, he bowed his head for blessings from everyone except me. My hands shook as I held the bangles tighter. The curtain rustled against my cheek. My tears fell silently, darkening the old fabric. When the official family photographs were taken, the photographer's voice carried clear, groom's parents, please stand beside him. I stepped forward from behind the curtain, hope bursting like a sudden flame. But before I reached the stage, my daughter-in-law's mother blocked me, her silk sari shimmering like armor. She whispered quickly, not you. It won't look right. Let me stand instead. And she did. In the photographs, she stood proudly by my son's side, while I remained hidden in the shadows. Mother, replaced by another, erased as though I had never existed. I thought being sent behind a curtain was the deepest humiliation. But worse was yet to come. I sat on the edge of my bed a little longer that morning, the bangles still warm in my hand, and my mind wandered back through the years. Weddings are never just about one day, they are made of decades of sacrifice stitched together, every meal skipped and every rupee saved, all so the moment can shine bright. When my son was a boy, he never knew hunger touched my lips before it ever touched his. I remember nights when the kitchen held only enough rice for one plate. I would serve him, patting his head, saying, I'm not hungry tonight. He never knew I chewed on plain water and salt in the dark. When he grew taller, his feet outpaced every shoe he owned. I stitched and patched until leather and cloth had no strength left. Then I sold the silver anklet from my wedding dowry to buy him new ones. He walked proudly to school, while my ankles felt naked, but my heart swelled watching his steps firm and confident. Books, uniforms, exam fees, each one was a mountain. I climbed quietly. I cleaned houses, washed dishes, scrubbed clothes until my hands cracked and bled. Every blister was a small offering laid at his feet, though he never knew the prayer behind it. Let him never feel the weight I carry. When his father died, he was still in college. I held the house together with threads so thin they should have snapped. I worked at night, sewing for neighbors, taking in laundry, doing whatever would keep him in class. I told him, study, beta, don't look back. I will manage, and somehow, I did so. When the wedding day finally arrived, my heart told me this was my harvest, that every drop of sweat, every worn sari, every empty stomach would bloom today in the joy of seeing him married, in standing proudly beside him as he stepped into his new life. I had imagined it for years. The guests would clap, the music would swell, and I would stand near him, my old green sari glowing brighter than silk, because it would be washed in pride. I had saved my last bangles for this very moment. They were my mother's gift to me on my wedding day, passed from her trembling hand to mine. She had said, keep these for when your child marries. It will be your blessing. And here I was, holding them, ready to pass them on. Ready to tell my daughter-in-law, you may be new here, but my love is old and steady. Wear these, and know you are welcomed. But even as I dreamed it, the voices from outside grew sharper. A planner saying, keep her out of sight. My daughter-in-law's mother, looking at me with eyes that measured and dismissed. I pressed the bangles tighter, whispering to myself, he will not forget. My son will not forget me. I believed it. I wanted to believe it. If this story has touched your heart so far, don't forget to subscribe. More people need to hear the struggles and dignity of forgotten mothers. By mid-morning, the house swelled with music. Relatives filled the courtyard, bright silks and gold flashing under the sun. The smell of sweets drifted through the air. Children laughed, running between legs, their little hands sticky with sugar. I stood at the top of the stairs, sari carefully pleated, bangles wrapped in cloth. For a moment, I felt almost radiant, as though love could shine brighter than jewels. But then I heard it again, a whisper, sharp as a knife. She shouldn't be near the guests, someone said. Her sari is too old. People will talk. Another voice added, the photographs will look odd. Photographs. as if a lifetime of sacrifice could be erased by a single click of a camera. I gripped the rail, my heart heavy but still hopeful. "He will ask for me," I whispered. "My son will look for me. He will want his mother's blessing." The music swelled louder. The guests cheered. The ceremony began. And still no one called my name. I thought it was only whispers behind my back. But soon, they would push me out of sight entirely. The courtyard was alive with drums, voices, and the crackle of joy. I clutched the bangles in my hand, walking slowly toward the front, my eyes searching for him, my son, my groom. When I reached the hall, an usher stepped in front of me. His smile was polite but firm. "Mudgy," he said softly, "your seat is there." He pointed to a small plastic chair at the very back. Far from the stage, far from the guests of honor. I frowned. "I am the groom's mother. My place is near my son." His eyes shifted uneasily. "The front is reserved for close family," he whispered. "I am his family," I said, my voice steady but trembling inside. Before he could answer, my daughter-in-law's mother appeared, silk rustling, jewels flashing. She placed her hand lightly on my arm, her smile sweet but sharp. "It's better if you sit in the back behind. Guests are watching. The photographers too. It will be easier this way." Easier. The word echoed in my chest like a hollow drum. Easier for them, harder for me. I sat where they told me, on the plastic chair far from the golden lights. My knees ached, my back complained, but worse than that, my heart felt erased. From where I sat, I could see the stage. My son stood tall, garland around his neck, smiles lighting his face. I waited, hoping he would look around, scan the crowd, and notice I was missing from his side. But he was laughing with friends, posing for photographs, listening to instructions shouted by photographers. His eyes never searched for me. Guests walked past me carrying trays of sweets. Some glanced at me, then quickly away, as though unsure who I was. A woman even leaned to her friend and asked, "Is she a servant?" The words pierced me, sharp and cold. A servant? After a lifetime of service. The title was not far from truth, but it was not what I was meant to be today. I pressed the bangles against my chest, whispering, "He will not forget me. He will call for me." As the rituals began, I leaned forward, desperate to catch every word. The priest chanted, the fire glowed, the garlands exchanged. My son glanced once toward the crowd, his smile wide, but when his gaze swept past me, it did not linger. My seat felt smaller and smaller. My sorry, once chosen with hope, now felt like a burden on my shoulders. My hands trembled not from age but from humiliation. If this moment broke your heart, please share this story. Too many mothers are erased on the very days they should be honored. When the time came for family blessings, I rose from my chair, clutching the bangles. My steps were slow but certain. This was my moment. But before I reached the stage, a relative blocked my way. "Not now, Maji," he said quickly. "Let the others go first. You can bless him later." I tried to protest, but another relative gently turned me around, guiding me back to the plastic chair. I sat down heavily, my breath caught in my chest. I watched as others' uncles, aunts, cousins went up to bless him, while I, his mother, sat forgotten in the shadows. I thought my humiliation had reached its depth, but the worst was still to come.